We've got the brief spoilers for chapter 1188, and this chapter is looking crazy. Luffy's getting slammed. I know Luffy's gonna win in the end, but it's just nice to have Luffy lose once in a while. But getting to the chapter title is Void, which I think is the meaning for Imu's name, and sadly there is a break next week, but we have gotten 3 chapters in a row, so we've been doing pretty well. The color spread is the Straw Hat crew underwater, so I don't know if they're swimming, if they're in a ship or something like that. We're gonna have to wait and see. But the first spoiler that we've got for today is Luffy transforms into a genie using Gear 5 and fights against Imu. So I don't know how much I believe this spoiler. We're gonna have to wait and see in the full chapter, like to what extent Luffy's actually turning into a genie, or if he's turning into a genie at all. But when I think of genie, I think of this fucker from Whole Cake Island that had a genie come out of his belly. We've seen Luffy change his appearance in the past using Gear 5, so we're gonna have to wait and see if he's like fully transforming into a genie, or if it's just like some lukewarm cosplay. But I wonder why Luffy's transforming into a genie in the first place. Maybe he just sees Imu's like this weird fucking demon, and he's like, okay, I gotta transform into something myself. But moving on to the next spoiler, we also see Joyboy in one of Imu's memories, and his smile looks a lot like Luffy. Okay, so we're getting some of the Joyboy stuff. This is something that I wanted to see in this fight against Imu and Luffy. I thought Oda was gonna lore dump a bunch about Joyboy through Imu, and it looks like that's the case. We're getting some more about Joyboy from Imu. Dude, we might be getting the fucking Joyboy face reveal at the end of this arc, or we might be getting it in this fight very soon. Like, it's gonna be coming here, one of these next chapters. And when you think about the Void Century flashback, who are we going to get that from? It might be Imu, because who actually knows about the Void Century? It's Imu. Imu's the only one who's been in that time. I think the only 2 options are Imu's got a lore dump about the Void Century, or it's gonna be Robin reading some fucking mass poneglyph or something like that. But it looks like we're getting even more hints towards Joyboy. I think that we're just gonna keep getting more and more hints about Joyboy. It's super suspicious to me that Oda keeps trying to connect Joyboy and Luffy like one-to-one in a way. There's always been that theory that Luffy is Joyboy, like Luffy went back in time or something like that, and that Joyboy is Luffy. I don't really think that's the case. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because Imu should know about Luffy. I just think that Joyboy is going to be the closest character to Luffy. Like the way that Shanks and Roger are super connected to Luffy and they're super similar to Luffy, Joyboy is going to be the absolute carbon copy of Luffy. Because for as much as Roger and Shanks are like Luffy, neither of them was accepted by the Nika Nika no Mi. Joyboy and Luffy had the exact same fruit because their wills were aligned with the fruit. So really, Joyboy should be the closest thing to Luffy in the story. But moving on to the next spoiler, at the end of the chapter, Imu stabs Luffy after transforming. Okay, so I don't know if that's Luffy's transforming into his genie and then Imu stabbing him, or is this Imu transforming into something? Bro, I don't know what it is with Imu and stabbing motherfuckers in this arc. Like, Loki's gotten stabbed multiple times, now Luffy's getting stabbed. But if Imu's the one doing the stabbing, I don't really know how Imu would go giant blob form, giant monster form, whatever, and then stab Luffy. It seems like maybe Luffy's the one that's transforming and getting stabbed. This fight between Luffy and Imu seems to be going very similar to Loki's fight, because we had the Loki and Imu face off, and now we had the Luffy and Imu face off, and then the very next chapter after that we got a full chapter of fighting, and Imu essentially styled on both of them and then ended up stabbing both of them. Imu stabbed Loki with the Nemesis attack, but Imu is stabbing Luffy with a new Void attack, because this next spoiler, Imu creates a sword called Void and stabs Luffy just like Crocodile did. So I don't know if Luffy is being like picked up by the sword attack. That would be sick. Like if it's the same framing as this Crocodile and Luffy setup, that would be sick. Imu cooked Luffy and Loki. That's crazy to me, because Loki already did quite a bit of damage to Imu and then just absolutely bodied Luffy like nothing. If you saw my last video that I made yesterday, I talked about how I think Luffy's gonna need to take a break in this fight. He's gonna get defeated and then come back into the fight, because we need to wrap other things up. We need to finish the Zoro and Sanji fight, stuff like that. So Luffy's fight needs to be drug out, and that looks to be the case. Like, Luffy's getting absolutely shit on in this chapter. He's gonna have to, he's gonna fight back. I think he will fight back the way that Loki fought back. He got hit with the Nemesis attack and then he was able to re-attack Imu. But then Imu eventually took him out of the battle last chapter. Though I think Loki will make a comeback once Luffy needs to take his break. And then eventually Luffy will come into the fight and finish it once everything else in Elbaf is completed. So I think that this is the build up to Luffy's break, which is gonna make the opportunity for Loki and Usopp. So in my opinion, this is actually a good sign for the arc, because it means that there's gonna be an opening for Loki and potentially Usopp to come back into the fight. If Luffy was kind of having a tit for tat battle against against Imu this chapter, or Imu was kind of just styling on Luffy, but it wasn't really conclusive, then I would be more scared for Usopp and Loki. But honestly, because Luffy kind of went all out and then got shit on by Imu, he's gonna probably come back again, but he's gonna get beat. And then he can take a break, Loki can come in, and then Luffy can come in later in the arc. And when Luffy comes back, he's gonna need to grow. I think he's gonna grow in that break period in between these two fights with Imu. Because Imu tells Luffy, you're not Joyboy. Joyboy would never be this weak. I've never heard anyone talk like this. Imu tells Luffy, bro, you're not him. You might have the same devil fruit as him. You might act like him, but you are not as strong as Joyboy. But it seems like there's truly levels to this shit, because Luffy is the guy who beat Kaido and he's not able to do shit against Imu. And Imu's talking about this Joyboy guy like he's fucking LeBron James. And I don't even think Imu's going full out here. They still have their giant form that we know about from the Harley mural and the Sabo incident in the Holy Land. So Imu's not even going all out and Luffy's getting packed up. Imu just ran 2 1v1s against Luffy and Loki, who are both insanely strong. Loki should be as strong as Harold. Imu is insanely powerful. So this just puts into perspective how fucking strong Joyboy is, because Joyboy still makes Imu shit their pants. So I think once Luffy gets defeated, Loki and Usopp come in to stall out Imu. That's when Luffy can grow, maybe learn about his Maki, stuff like that. And then he can come back into the fight and actually fight Imu. Because we are getting towards the end of the story. So if Luffy's ever going to reach this fucking Joyboy level, it's going to have to start now. Obviously, he's going to need his final growth at the very end of the story against Blackbeard and whoever else he fights. But like right here, we're fighting fucking Imu, dude. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Luffy's going to get defeated? Do you think Loki's going to come back in and pick up the slack? Do you think Luffy's going to be getting Maki? Is he going to be unlocking Maki later in this arc? If you guys enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. That's all I got for today's video. See ya.